Where'd it go? Where is it? What's that? Well, as I tried to figure out what was happening, my husband started getting demoted at work because he was making more and more mistakes. He never had a strong work ethic, so the demotion didn't surprise him too much. However, he began forgetting things frequently, so we decided to visit the hospital to make sure everything was okay. I suspected it could be depression, but the doctor informed us that it was actually early onset Alzheimer's. In simpler terms, it was a form of dementia. I had heard of younger people being diagnosed with the disease, but I was still in shock that my own husband had it. My name is Sarah Jason. 5 years have passed since then. I'm now 49, and my husband is 53. We never had children, so I continued working. My parents passed away years ago, but my husband's parents are still alive, living in a quiet countryside town not too far from us. They are kind, caring people. When my husband was first diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they even suggested taking him in and urged me to consider getting a divorce. But my husband always hated the idea of living in the country, and he absolutely refused to move back there. I also didn't rush into the idea of divorce, just because he got sick. We had been married for nearly 19 years, sharing both good and bad times. Leaving him just because he got ill didn't feel right to me. Although his memory was fading, he could still function and live a relatively normal life. The medication he was on seemed to slow the progression of the disease. It wasn't too bad. He could still recognize me, and he could perform basic tasks, although sometimes he wouldn't respond when I spoke to him. At times, he acted perfectly normal, so it was hard to believe something was wrong. But whenever I asked him about certain things, he would often say he didn't know or didn't remember. He made more mistakes at work, and sometimes he'd even cry when he couldn't understand simple paperwork. One day, he told me, "I think I should quit my job. Will you support me if I do?" Seeing how anxious he was, I couldn't bring myself to say no, so he ended up quitting. Since then, he rarely leaves the house, spending most of his time at home. He's not causing any real trouble, just occasionally leaving things out or making a mess in the kitchen. It's nothing too serious. He isn't bothering anyone, so I considered it manageable. I did talk to the doctor about hiring someone to care for him while I was at work, but the doctor reassured me that my husband still had enough awareness to sense danger. He said we could discuss more options when the disease progressed. For now, the doctor advised me to remind my husband to lock the door and not to go outside alone. I still worried about whether he'd be all right, but my husband often insisted that he could handle being alone. Sometimes he'd even snap at me if I pushed too hard. "Shut up. I'm sick. Stop confusing me even more," he would shout. "Be more understanding." Feeling overwhelmed, I started to let things go. 5 years before my husband's diagnosis, when I was 39, I had been promoted to a section manager at work. With the promotion came a salary boost, so when he left his job, we didn't face immediate financial struggles. We also had some savings, so there was no need to panic. Thankfully, our savings have stayed untouched. I'm grateful that I kept working through it all. My only wish is for life to continue as normally as possible. However, something strange has been happening lately, and it's been bothering me. Things keep disappearing. Items I cherished, like brand-name bags, shoes, and clothes I had just bought, have gone missing. These were expensive things I had saved up for, treating myself every now and then. I searched everywhere, thinking I might have placed them somewhere unusual, but I couldn't find them. When I asked my husband, he simply said, "I don't know." "Do you remember taking them anywhere?" I asked. "No, I don't remember," he replied. And that's all he would say, repeating it over and over. I started to wonder if his illness had progressed to the point where he didn't even remember taking things out of the house. Every time I came home from work and asked what he did during the day, he would often respond with, "I can't remember." The doctor had told me that the progression of Alzheimer's could be slow in some cases and faster in others. But lately, I couldn't shake the feeling that his condition was getting worse more quickly than expected. If that was true, I worried even more about leaving him alone while I was at work. If he started wandering off, I wouldn't be able to handle it all by myself. I was so worried about my husband's condition that I secretly installed surveillance cameras around the house. My biggest fear was that he might start wandering outside or bothering others. If that happened, I would need to step in and handle it immediately. A week later, after my husband went to bed, I nervously sat down to review the footage. What I saw on the screen was far beyond anything I had imagined. My heart dropped. There on the video was my husband bringing another woman into our home. For the past 5 years, I hadn't had a real conversation with him. He always gave vague answers whenever I asked anything, but on the footage, he was talking to this woman with ease, like nothing was wrong with him at all. It was hard to believe that this was the same man diagnosed with dementia. What shocked me even more was when I realized who the woman was. It was the doctor who had diagnosed my husband with Alzheimer's. The same doctor who worked at the hospital where my husband's company sent him for checkups. Was this some sort of cruel joke? Were my husband and the doctor in on this together? Or worse, was the whole diagnosis a lie? As I listened to their conversation, I heard my husband's voice clearly on the video. "Are you sure she hasn't found out yet?" "Not at all," the doctor replied. "Dementia is such a convenient disease. I don't have to work, and anytime something comes up, I can just say I don't remember." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband, the man I had been supporting for years, working hard to take care of, was using his illness as an excuse to live an easy life while I carried all the weight. "You're terrible," the doctor teased. "You make your wife work while you relax at home and sneak me in here." "Hey, it was your idea when I said I wanted to quit working," my husband said, laughing. "You said it would be perfect, and it was. I didn't think it'd work out this well." The woman crossed her legs and laughed with him. So smug. "She's making all this money now. She got promoted, right? Earning more than me, and probably looking down on me. But thanks to her, we get to enjoy this time together." My husband laughed. "Well, she's basically my ATM now, so she better keep working hard."
Damn.
That's what he called me. And if that wasn't enough, the woman asked him, "Didn't you call her your housekeeper the other day?" "Yeah, housekeeper and ATM," he chuckled. I was frozen, staring at the screen. My mind couldn't process what I was hearing. The words from the video kept repeating in my head. And then my husband said something that stung even more. "Oh, by the way, don't take too much stuff out of the house." My wife started to notice things missing. The woman shrugged. "Why don't you just say you forgot where you put them? Blame the disease." He laughed again. "Yeah, no other illness is as convenient as this." At that moment, everything hit me all at once. For 5 years, I had been by his side, working hard, taking care of the house, and trying my best to support him without question. Now, it all felt like a cruel joke. I had been living in the dark, unaware of how I was being deceived. My body felt drained of all energy. I didn't know how to react, and for some reason, I just started laughing. Maybe I had finally snapped, or maybe I was just so overwhelmed by the anger, sadness, frustration, and despair that laughter was all I could do. But the nightmare wasn't over. Later, I checked our bank account, and to my horror, the balance was zero. Every dollar I had saved since we got married was gone. My husband had tithe in it all. In that moment, I felt like my entire world had collapsed. It was as if everything I had worked for, all my efforts, had been for nothing. The next morning, as the first light of dawn broke, my husband woke up, looking completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "Where's breakfast?" he asked casually. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him and demand answers, but I held back. He still had no idea that I knew everything. The urge to confront him right then and there was overwhelming, but I managed to resist. "What are you planning to do today?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He looked at me, confused. "Why are you asking me that?" "I'm just curious," I replied, barely holding back my anger. "What do you do at home all day?" "Well, you know I'd love to work like you do," he said with a fake smile. "But I'm sick, so I just try to stay out of trouble." How could he lie so easily? I could barely look at him. I thought about filing for divorce, using his cheating as grounds for alimony. After everything I had learned, I had every reason to leave him. But when I thought about the past 5 years and all I had sacrificed, it filled me with rage. I broke down in tears, overwhelmed by the unfairness of it all. People who do such cruel things usually try to joke their way out of it or offer weak excuses. But no matter what, nothing could justify what he had done. A few days passed as I tried to figure out my next move. Just seeing his face made me sick to my stomach, but I remained patient. I kept the cameras rolling, and my husband continued to act as if nothing had changed. He still brought the doctor into our home when I was away. One day, I casually asked him, "Hey, did anyone come by today? I thought I smelled someone else in the house." Someone might have dropped by," he said, scratching his head. "Maybe it was a salesman, but I don't remember." I could hardly contain my disgust, but I forced myself to smile. "So, how are you feeling? You seem to be doing better lately. Are you getting better with the treatment?" "I don't think so. If anything, I feel like my memory is getting worse," he said, sounding almost convincing. "The doctor said once you have the disease, you can slow it down, but you can't cure it." "That's right," I said, playing along. "That doctor, she was quite beautiful, wasn't she?" "Was she?" "I can't even remember her face," he replied, feigning innocence. I was amazed at how long he could keep up this act. I couldn't just sit and do nothing any longer. Without telling my husband, I took the recorded footage and went to visit my in-laws. They were always so kind and considerate to me, but they were still his parents. A part of me feared they would side with him, no matter what he did. I worried they might say my husband cheated because I wasn't good enough or blame me for not understanding why he didn't want to work. Still, I had no one else to turn to. If they sided with him, I thought I would simply accept it, file for divorce, and move on. "Mr. and Mrs. Jason," I began when I arrived, "I'm sorry to bother you like this, but I need to talk to you about something important." My mother-in-law looked concerned. "You look so worn out. What's happened?" She invited me in, offering to make me something hot to eat. Her kindness almost brought me to tears. I was so afraid of their reaction, but I had nothing to worry about. After I showed them the video of my husband and the female doctor, my in-laws immediately got down on their knees, tears in their eyes, apologizing to me. "My foolish son. I'm so sorry, Sarah," my father-in-law said. "We had no idea," my mother-in-law added, holding my hands. "Please forgive us." Instead of blaming me, they cried with me, and in that moment, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. The tension that had built up inside me for so long was finally beginning to release. Though I was still furious with my husband, knowing I had someone on my side meant the world to me. There was one other thing that made me happy during this dark time: an unexpected promotion at work. I was offered a position as department head, and it felt like a glimmer of hope. I was reminded that all my hard work had not gone unnoticed. There was still a place for me where I could thrive. "Hey, Sarah, are you listening to me?" My husband's voice snapped me back to reality.
"What?"
"Oh, sorry, I was just spacing out," I said, pretending to be distracted. "You're acting weird," he said, narrowing his eyes. His comment sparked an idea. I smiled inwardly and replied, "Well, maybe I'm losing it too. Dementia's no joke, right?" "Huh." His eyes widened, and I knew I had his attention. From that day forward, I began subtly mimicking the things he had said about his illness, the same things he used to deceive me. Every day, I dropped small hints. "What was I doing earlier?" I'd ask, feigning forgetfulness. "I've been making mistakes at work. I can't remember how to use the washing machine." As time went on, my husband became more and more unsettled. I could see the fear creeping in. He thought I might be losing my memory, just as he had pretended to. Then one day, I came home to find that he was gone. He had left a note and the divorce papers, already filled out. "I don't want to cause you any more trouble, so I've decided to divorce you."
"Please don't look for me, Ethan."
I wasn't surprised. I knew exactly why he had run away. He thought I had dementia and didn't want to be stuck taking care of me. Of course, I knew where he was. He had rented an apartment to continue his relationship with the female doctor. This, too, was revealed in the hidden camera footage. I even heard him laugh as he told the doctor, "I've moved my savings, so I don't have to worry about money for a while." He had no idea what was coming. I wasted no time filing the divorce papers and sending him a bill for alimony and property division, addressed to his new apartment. I also sent the same to the doctor's house, by certified mail. The doctor, as it turned out, was married and lived in the suburbs with her family. Her husband deserved to know what was going on, so I sent him a copy of the video as well. It didn't take long for my husband to call me in a panic. What the hell is this? Alimony. Yes, I replied calmly. You're going to pay alimony for cheating on me. Are you serious? He stammered. And you sent it to the doctor, too? Of course. Her husband deserves to know about it, don't you think? I'm sure they're dealing with that mess right now. In addition to the legal documents, I sent my husband a copy of the footage from the hidden cameras. He was speechless when he realized how much I knew. You, he muttered. How did you figure it all out? I was surprised too, I said with a smirk. Can't believe you fell for my act, huh? You tricked me, he shouted, but it was no use. He had no ground to stand on. Me? Trick you? I replied, raising an eyebrow. After everything you've done? You think you have any right to be angry after pretending to have dementia for 5 years, living off my income, and bringing another woman into our home? His bravado faded quickly. He mumbled something, his words slurred as if he didn't know what to say. But about the division of property, he stammered. I don't have anything left. I smiled coldly. We still have your savings, don't we? He paused, then his face fell. I've already spent it all, he admitted. There's nothing left. Even after all that had happened, he was still trying to weasel his way out of responsibility. But this time, there was no escape. I had everything I needed, video evidence, documents, and the truth. You don't seem to realize, I said, my voice steady. I planted cameras in the house. I heard every word you said to the doctor. I have all the footage, and it's over. I have solid proof, I told him firmly. And your parents know everything. They're furious. As soon as I said that, he erupted. How dare you tell them about this, he shouted, his anger boiling over. He still didn't seem to grasp that he had no right to yell at me. The irony of it all was almost laughable. Thank goodness he blabbed so much during our conversations. It saved me the expense of hiring a private investigator. When I pointed this out, he went silent, maybe at a loss for words, and then abruptly hung up the phone. A month later, he called again. This time, there was a note of confusion in his voice. What's going on? What are you talking about? I asked. I just went to the apartment, and they said it's already been canceled. I almost laughed. What apartment? Our apartment, of course, he snapped. The absurdity of his question was astounding. He was the one who left the divorce papers, after all. Did he really think he could just waltz back into my life? When I told him that I had canceled the lease right after he left, his anger flared up again. What do you mean you canceled the lease without telling me? He demanded. I explained that since he was unemployed, he couldn't be the tenant anymore. So once he quit his job, I had the lease transferred into my name. The decision to end the lease was mine and mine alone. I bought a condo. I live there now, I added, feeling a sense of finality. You bought it? How? He asked, his tone incredulous. With the alimony I got from you and your lover, plus the savings I took back? I replied. It's a small place, but it's mine. It's my castle. Really? Well, I'm coming over then, he said, as if that were the most natural thing in the world. Don't you have a girlfriend to go to? I asked, already knowing the answer. I broke up with her, he muttered. Her husband found out she was cheating and divorced her. She's in a mess, lost her reputation at the hospital, got sued for making a diagnostic error, and now she's in debt. Both her ex-husband and I are suing her for alimony. Oh, really? I said, barely hiding my sarcasm. So I've decided. I'll start over with you, he declared, as though that would fix everything. The alimony should be canceled now, right? We can get that money back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did he really think I would take him back after everything? I felt like laughing, but instead, I spoke calmly. You're out of your mind, I said. Why should I pay anything? We're divorced and I never want to see your face again. There's no chance in hell I'm getting back together with you. With that, I hung up the phone and immediately blocked his number. I was done. Apparently, after our call, my ex-husband went to visit his parents, probably thinking they would take him in. But what he didn't know was that they had sold their house and moved into an apartment for seniors. They told me he was shocked when he saw the for sale sign in front of the house. He contacted them, but they refused to help. We had a lawyer working on collecting the remaining money from the division of property and alimony, so there wouldn't be much left in his pocket anyway. He had lost his job, couldn't pay the rent on his apartment, and was eventually evicted. With nowhere else to turn, he must have gone to his parents, only to find they had anticipated this and moved out to avoid him coming back. His parents later told me, if we had stayed, he might have tried to move back in. We couldn't let that happen, Sarah. We didn't want you to suffer because of him. From what I've heard, he's now working as a live-in employee at a factory. But his laziness hasn't changed. He's constantly getting yelled at by younger employees, and they've even resorted to beating him up. Despite his dire situation, he continues to reach out to his parents for help, but they've brushed him off every time. Several months have passed since the divorce, and I'm still in touch with my former in-laws. They're like real parents to me, always concerned about my well-being. I plan to stay close to them and take care of them if they ever need me. As for me, I've been promoted to department manager and my salary has increased. Life is peaceful now, and I'm fully enjoying my time alone.